Mine went very well. Had a fun time in the book club today. And so join us next Wednesday in the Astounding Readers Book Club. Come on in, check us out. Hold on a minute, y'all. I gotta set the other. Hold on. I forgot to shut it off when I left my comments. Hold on. I'll be right with you. I was just putting up comments, and I did a new live. I'm going to have a big box opening on Friday. You don't want to miss that. So come on in Friday live, 9:30 a.m. So let's start our evening with today's prayer. I just love reading these, and I hope you do too. Perhaps this is the moment for which you have been created. Esther 4:14. Oh, I love that. Perhaps this is the moment for which you have been created. How beautiful is that? And we are going into chapter 34 of Debbie McComer's starting now. And I cannot wait to get into this chapter. So I'm going to take a drink. And get ready to read. I read some of it this morning in the book club. And it got me pretty excited. So I hope it will. Hi, Paula. Thanks for coming in. Hello, everyone. Let me get settled here. Oh, I'm so excited. I cannot wait to get into this chapter. And like I told you, I did read some of it earlier, and it sounded so good. So let's get started. As soon as Philip heard the news from Sharon Jennings, he left the hospital. He didn't know where he would find Libby. The thought of Libby facing this alone undid him. She hadn't answered any of his calls, nor had she responded to the messages he had left on her voicemail. When his frustration grew so much that he couldn't remain at the hospital any longer, he went directly to Libby's condo. Philip found Libby on the floor of the baby's nursery. She was huddled in a tight ball and sobbing so hard her entire body shook. "Libby," he whispered, and got down on the floor next to her. He wrapped his arms around her, and she eagerly sank into his embrace. "I'm so sorry, sweetheart. So very sorry." She couldn't speak, and for a moment he wondered if she was even breathing as he held and rocked her. He didn't have any words of comfort, any words of wisdom to share. When pain was this deep, he figured it was the best to say nothing. After a while, she stopped weeping and simply clung to him. "They want to adopt Amy Jo," she whispered brokenly. "I heard. She's their granddaughter. I know. They didn't think I could love her as much as they would. They're wrong about that." His arms tightened around, her arms tightened around him. "How is it possible to love a baby this much and not be linked by blood?" she whispered. Philip had no answer to give her. "I don't know how it happens, but it does. I've seen it. I know it's true. He resisted the urge to kiss her for fear of where it would lead. He wanted her badly, yearned to comfort her, to show his love, to slowly sink his body into hers and protect her from all the pain that consumed her. He would do anything to lift this heartache from her shoulders, but felt helpless. All he could do was hold her and kiss her. Her response was strong and immediate. He realized he could make love to her right here on this carpet. His need was great, but his love was stronger. Together they would get through this. He would help Libby the best he could. How'd you get into the condo? She asked, rubbing the moisture from her cheeks. The door was unlocked. I rang the bell, but I didn't think you could hear it. I didn't, she said, and blew her nose into the thick wad of tissues in her hands. Philip brushed her hair away from the sides of her face. Her nose was red and her eyes swollen, and yet he could honestly say he had never loved her more. His heart ached for her. If it were humanly possible, he would absorb her pain, take it within himself rather than see Libby endure this emotional turmoil. He had never felt this way before. Never. What can I do to help you? He asked, willing to do anything, make any sacrifice. Whatever she asked, he'd find a way. Just hold me. I will. He kissed her crown, pressing her tightly against his heart. I went to the chapel after I met with the Armstrong family, Libby whispered. I didn't talk to God. I spoke to my mother. I asked her. She broke off for a moment and struggled not to break into sobs again. I asked my mother, Libby said, trying again, what I should do. Philip could picture her there in the hospital chapel, broken-hearted, reaching out to the one person in the world she knew had surely loved her. My first thoughts were crazy, Libby admitted. I devised a plan to make off with Amy Jo and take her somewhere. I started figuring out how to do it, and then concocted all kinds of schemes before I realized I was being totally delusional. I love her. I would give anything to make this nightmare go away. She buried her face into his chest and broke into heart-wrenching sobs. Phil rested his chin on the top of her head. He stroked her back. I so badly wanted to be her family. I know, my darling, I know. Abby was going to hold a baby shower for me at the hospital. Philip had heard all about that. In fact, several of the doctors he knew had planned to attend. I lost my family when my mother and brother died. My father, he just sort of gave up. It wasn't any better after he remarried. I always felt on the outside, like I didn't matter. You matter to me, Philip whispered as he stroked her hair. I'm just feeling sorry for myself, aren't I? This is nothing more than a pity party. You're entitled. I called my dad, and you know what he said? No, Philip whispered. Although he had a good idea, Libby hadn't gotten much sympathy from her father. He said that it just must not have been meant to be. The man might have tried to reassure Libby she could still have a family of her own one day, Philip mused. Apparently, it wasn't on the old man's heart to offer love and sympathy to his daughter. He hadn't been able to when Libby had lost her mother so it made sense that he was equally incapable now. She was silent for a long time. I felt better after talking to Mom. Good. No one ever loved me as much as my mother. No one ever does, Philip whispered. The doorbell rang again, and before Libby or Philip could react, the front door opened and Robin rushed into the nursery. Libby, I got here as soon as I could, Robin cried. She paused when she saw Philip holding Libby on the nursery floor. The crib was all assembled with a cute mobile dangling above. In fact, everything was laid out and ready for Amy Jo to come home. Philip knew Libby must have been up half the night putting everything into place, and it was all for naught. Oh, Libby, Robin said as she sank to her knees. I am so sorry. She stretched her arms around the two of them and hugged Libby too. Who told you? Libby whispered. Philip. He called to tell me what had happened and said you weren't answering your phone. Libby lifted her head in order to look up at him. You called me? Philip had left no fewer than 6 messages before heading out to find her. He felt an impressible need to be with her. Philip thought you'd want your friends around you. Libby stretched out her arm and Robin grabbed hold of her fingers. You'll get through this, Libby. I know you will. Libby nodded and seemed to find strength in her friend's confidence. I will. It's just that it hurts so much right now. Philip realized that this was just one more loss to hit Libby after so many others. A knock sounded against the door and a voice called from the front of the condo. Libby, Libby, are you there? It was Lydia from the yarn store. Come in, Robin called out. We're in the nursery. Oh, Libby, Lydia said, kneeling down on the floor with the others. I'm so sorry. Ava told Casey that Peter's parents have decided to adopt the baby. Tell your friend Alex, the baker, she can cancel the order for the cake for the baby shower, she said, biting into her lower lip. Oh, honey, don't you worry about that right now. We'll take care of everything, Lydia assured her. Now that Libby was surrounded by her friends, Philip could see she was in good hands for the time being. Slowly he released her and stood. Libby raised her eyes to his, pleading with him not to leave. I'll be back in an hour, he said, and pressed his hand to his lips, and then cast the kiss to her way. Promise? Promise. By the time he returned with a quart of wonton soup, her friends had left. Libby answered the door, and she looked somber, but he could see that she pulled herself out of the first shock of emotional crisis. What's that? She asked, looking at the bag in his hand. Soup. I couldn't think of anything else to bring. It had taken him the better part of an hour to decide what to get for dinner. It wasn't like menus offered suggestions for what best ails a broken heart. Soup, she repeated. Will that do? I was going to cook you dinner, she whispered. I know. You can do that another time. Tonight, it's on me. Thank you. He went into the kitchen and brought down 2 bowls. I would have brought wine, but I couldn't think of what would go with wonton soup. It's wonton. One of your favorites, right? Yes, but I'm surprised you know that. He couldn't remember how he had picked up on that small tidbit of information about her, but it was there in the back of his mind. Mom must have told you. He smiled. Perhaps so. It just might be that Libby's mother had steered him in that direction. He searched through the kitchen drawers until he found where she kept the silverware, setting everything up for on the breakfast bar, he joined her. They clicked spoons and then ate. Philip finished first. Libby ate only a few bites. It's good. I just don't have much of an appetite. Don't worry about it. He rinsed off the bowls and set them aside for the dishwasher. And you do cleanup too? I'm multi-talented, he said, wanting to keep the mood light. Drying off his hands, he joined her in the living room. It was still light out, the sun bright in the late August sky. It was a beautiful day, as only late summer could be in the Pacific Northwest. What would you like to do, he asked. Do you want to go out? I always feel better when I get out on the water for a while. She seemed to think it over and shook her head. Can we just stay right here? Anything, sweetheart. Would you hold me again? Nothing would please me more. They cuddled on the sofa. After a while, Libby reached for the remote control and turned on the television. Philip couldn't remember the last time he watched an hour of uninterrupted television. None of the programs were familiar. He had lost track of how long the two of them just sat there. He laughed at some crazy sitcom joke and saw Libby break into a weak smile. Seeing her amused, however briefly, gave him such a strong feeling of love that he closed his eyes, unfamiliar with the richness of the emotion. Needing to respond in some way, he kissed the top of her head. He wasn't a man who often sat and did nothing. Yet, he was at a complete peace, being here with Libby, sharing this time with her, knowing she needed him. What amazed him, what he couldn't explain, was the knowledge that he needed her too. Being with her was just as important to him. His reserve was gone, worn away, bit by bit as their relationship developed. He watched her with the newborns and how she stepped up to mentor Ava. This was a woman he could love, a woman he could spend the rest of his life loving. When the late night news came on, Philip knew it was time to leave. Yet he didn't want to go. Didn't feel good about abandoning her, not tonight. I should get home. Don't go, she pleaded, clinging to his arm. Libby, I'm not asking you to make love to me. Trust me, darling, you wouldn't need to ask. If she only knew how tempting she was, red eyes and all. He had never been more attracted to a woman than he was at that very moment. She looked up at him and smiled. I need someone to hold me tonight. Nothing more. Can you do that? For you, my love, anything. Am I your love? She asked, frowning slightly with the question. Yes, he whispered, and bent down to kiss her. Although it would have been easy to allow that lone kiss to become much more, he ended it quickly for fear he wouldn't have the fortitude to stop. I love you, Libby, more than I realized it was possible to love someone. I had mostly given up on falling in love. If he didn't love her, he'd take her to bed and keep her up all night making love to her. He would do all that when the time was right. But that time wasn't now. Not tonight. Loving you frightens me a little. He laughed softly. Me too. We're a couple of hard cases, aren't we? In fact, it frightened him more than a little, but not enough to give up now. With his arm tucked around her waist, he led her into the bedroom. And that takes us to chapter 35. Oh my goodness. And Philip realized how much he truly loved Libby. That is such a good chapter and a heartfelt chapter. If you like that chapter, let me know in the comments below. And we are going to do chapter 35 next Wednesday night at 9 p.m. The book is coming to a close, and we shall see what is going to happen with Philip and Libby, whether or not she will end up with Amy Jo, and what about Ava's baby. We can figure that out in the book club. Good night, all.